Today I'm going to tell you a story so disturbing it leaves a mark set against the unforgiving silence of the Old West. A land of dust heat and lawless miles, where fate collides with cruelty in places no one is meant to see. It begins with a single scream, small, desperate, and easy to ignore, but powerful enough to pull one man into a choice that would change everything. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Jack Holloway heard the scream before he ever saw her, a sharp, ragged sound that sliced through the Kansas heat like steel. As he topped the low rise beyond Dodge City, the prairie broke open into a small stand of cottonwoods, and there she was, a young woman hanging upside down from a thick branch. Her ankles were cinched tight with rope wrists bound behind her back. Her dress slipped to her waist, dust clinging to pale underclothes, her voice tearing at the empty sky as if it might answer back. For 2 full heartbeats, Jack didn't move. He stood locked in place. The sudden, unguarded sight, one he hadn't faced since Eliza was put in the ground 8 summers ago, made his eyes dip before he could stop them. The girl caught it instantly, and shame hit her like fire. "Don't look there. That's off limits," she snapped, her voice breaking. Jack blinked hard, jaw tightening, and forced his gaze up to her face. She looked no more than 22, freckled, sunburned, and furious that her rescue had witnessed her humiliation. Jack swung down from the saddle boots, thudding into dry grass, and drew his knife. The rope was rough cowboy work, cinched cruelly tight, meant to bite. Jack sliced through the knot, but didn't let her fall. He steadied her by the hips with one arm, solid as a fence post, and lowered her to the ground with deliberate care. She staggered, snatched up her fallen skirt, and yanked it down, as if fabric alone could erase what had already been seen. Deep hoof marks and torn grass told the rest of the story. There had been a struggle. Someone had taken their time with her out here beyond town. A shadow shifted among the trees. A man stepped into view, a deputy star flashing too bright in the sun. Wade Kincaid smiled like he owned the very air Clara Wynne breathed. "She's under arrest," he said easily. He held up a folded paper. "By order of Dodge City." Clara flinched. Jack studied the ink from where he stood. His gut twisted. It was a warrant, but the name was wrong. The date smeared. The signature looked like a drunk scratch. Jack felt Clara trembling beside him. And beneath that, something darker rose up. A slow burn of anger at how easily a badge could turn into a weapon. Wade leaned in, lowering his voice. "You saw too much, rancher," he murmured. "Now you either hand her over or you ride back to that lonely house of yours and keep quiet." Jack looked at Clara. Her eyes were wet. But they weren't pleading. They were daring him to be decent. He could take her into town, find Marshal Owen Black, try to win it clean. Or he could end it right here where no one would see what came next. If Jack broke the rules to save her, would Dodge City call him a hero or string him up? Jack didn't move when Wade finished talking. The prairie fell still, the kind of silence that settles right before trouble, when even the wind seems to listen. Clara stood close enough that Jack could feel her shaking, and that told him more than any paper ever could. He glanced at the warrant again, slow and measured like a man reading a fence line. "Funny thing," Jack said calmly, almost friendly. "I've ridden this county 20 years, and I've never seen a lawful arrest start with a girl tied upside down." Wade's grin widened. "It's called resisting," he said. "She ran. I caught her." Clara let out a short laugh, half anger, half disbelief. "I tripped," she said. "He tied me up to teach me a lesson." Wade's eyes snapped to her sharp and cold. "Careful, girl," he warned. "Talking like that can make things worse." Something twisted in Jack's chest. It wasn't rage yet. But it was getting close. It was that weight a man feels when he finally understands how long he's let the world lean on him. Jack thought of Eliza, gone 8 summers now, and the hollow quiet that had filled his house ever since. He remembered how simple it had been to mind his own trail, to ride around trouble instead of straight through it. Wade stepped closer, close enough for Jack to catch the stink of sweat and cheap tobacco. "You can still walk away," Wade said softly. "Take your horse, take what pride you've got left, and leave her to the law." Jack looked at Clara again. The hem of her dress was torn, dust clung to her knees, her hair still tangled from the rope. Yet she stood tall, chin, lifted eyes, fixed on Wade, daring him to lay hands on her again. Jack let out a low chuckle. "Ma'am," he said to Clara, "you always get arrested like this?" She snorted despite herself. "Only on days that end in Y." Wade scowled. "That's enough," he snapped, reaching for Clara's arm. Jack moved faster than he had in years. He stepped between them, one hand raised, not striking, just stopping. Wade froze, his fingers inches from Clara's sleeve. "Don't," Jack said quietly. The word carried weight. Wade glanced down at Jack's hand, then back up at his face. "You put hands on an officer," Wade said, voice tight. "That's prison, rancher." Jack nodded once. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it's the last mistake you ever make." The smile drained from Wade's face. What replaced it was something sharp and ugly. He shifted his stance, his hand sliding toward his gun. And that was the moment it stopped being about law and started being about survival. Was Jack about to cross a line? He couldn't walk back from Wade's hand, hovered near his iron, like it moved on its own. Jack kept his voice low, steady, the way you speak to a skittish horse. "You reach for steel deputy and somebody's getting buried out here." Wade gave a dry laugh. "That a threat, rancher?" Jack shrugged. "It's a prediction." Behind him, Clara swallowed hard. Jack could hear her breathing fast, shallow. And he hated that this was how she learned fear. Wade shifted one step sideways, trying to get a clean angle on Jack's hip where his pistol rested. Jack matched him, never opening the space standing between Wade and Clara like a gate that wouldn't swing. Wade's eyes flicked down again. Then he tried something slick, the kind of trick men pull when they think they're smarter than everyone else. He let the warrant slip from his fingers, as if by accident. Jack's eyes dropped for half a heartbeat. Wade lunged, not with his gun, but his shoulders slamming into Jack's chest, trying to drive him back into Clara. Dust jumped from the dry grass as Jack staggered a step, his boots skidding. Then old ranch strength took over. Jack planted his heels and shoved back hard. Wade lost his balance. His hat flew off, spinning through the air like a bad joke. Clara gasped and, without thinking, kicked it away. The hat rolled into a nest of prickly weeds. Jack almost smiled, even with his heart hammering. Wade saw it. His face went red. "You little witch," he snarled at Clara. He swung his arm, not a punch, but a slap, meant to put her back in her place. Jack caught Wade's wrist in midair. The grip was firm, not cruel, just final. Wade tried to wrench himself free. Jack didn't loosen his grip. Wade's other hand shot down toward his gun. That was the real move, the one that meant death. Jack reacted without thought. He twisted Wade's wrist inward, hard and fast, and Wade grunted like a hog slamming into a fence. The deputy's fingers sprang open. The gun stayed locked in its holster. But the meaning was plain. Jack could stop him. Wade yanked himself back, eyes wide now. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Then he smiled again. It wasn't friendly. It was the smile of a man who knew exactly how to ruin another. "I'm going to make you pay for this in Dodge City," Wade said. Clara stepped up beside Jack, her voice steadier than her hands. "He's not the law," she said. "He's a bully wearing a star." Jack stared at Wade and understood something all at once. This deputy hadn't come alone. Men like him never did. Somewhere nearby, hidden in the cottonwoods or the tall grass, there was another set of eyes, maybe another gun. Jack felt it before he heard it. A sharp click came from behind the trees, then another closer this time. Jack knew it wasn't his imagination. Wade lifted his chin smug now, like a man holding a winning card. "Easy," he said. "You don't want to make this ugly?" Jack slowly raised one hand palm open, but he didn't step away from Clara. "Who's back there?" he asked, calm on the surface, tight underneath. A voice answered from the cottonwoods, rough, amused. "Just keeping things fair." A man stepped out, a long rifle resting easy on his shoulder. He was lean, sunburned, smiling like this was all sport. Wade nodded toward him. "That's my witness," he said. "Sees things real clear when a judge asks." Clara's fingers dug into Jack's sleeve. Jack felt her fear again, hot and sharp. He leaned just enough to whisper, "When I say move, you run. Don't look back." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." Jack smiled faintly at that. Wade cleared his throat. "Enough romance," he said. "Hands behind your back, rancher." Jack didn't move. Instead, he shifted his weight, slow, deliberate. Then Clara screamed, not in terror, but in warning. The rifleman's finger had slipped inside the trigger guard. Jack lunged sideways, grabbing Clara and dragging her down as the shot cracked through the air. Wood exploded above them. Birds burst from the trees. Jack hit the ground hard and rolled. Jack came up on one knee, his hand already finding his pistol. He didn't think it through. His body moved on instinct. A shot cracked sharp close, and the rifleman screamed. The bullet tore into his hand. He dropped the rifle like it was on fire. Jack's .44 barked once. Blood bloomed red across the man's fingers, and the rifle hit the dirt before the rest of him did. He clutched his wrist, staggered backward, then vanished into the brush, panicked and broken. Wade froze for a single heartbeat. No one moved. Then a horse thundered somewhere close. Wade's smile twitched like even he didn't care for that timing. Jack kept his eyes on him. "Your boys heard the shots, didn't they?" Jack said. Wade didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward the sound. That was answer enough. Jack surged forward, grabbed Wade, and drove him face first into the dirt. He pinned him there, ripped the badge from his chest, and crushed the tin star in his fist. Then he tossed it into the weeds. Jack leaned in close, his voice rough as gravel. "Tell the truth in town," he said, "or I'll tell it for you." Jack rose fast and turned to Clara. "Up. Now." She didn't argue. They scrambled onto the horse, Clara clinging tight behind him. Hoofbeats thundered closer. Angry voices carried on the wind. Jack dug in his heels, and the horse surged forward. They didn't slow until the first buildings of Dodge City came into view. Behind them, dust rolled like a storm that had learned their names. Clara leaned in close. Her voice was small now. "Jack, what if they catch us before we reach town?" Jack didn't look back. He kept the horse steady. "Then we don't let them take you." Clara swallowed, her fingers tightening on his belt. "I never even told you my name," she said. Jack's mouth twitched like he'd almost forgotten how to smile. "Clara," he said. I heard Wade say it. Then his face hardened again. "I haven't felt this awake since the day they put Eliza in the ground." He said it plain like truth didn't need dressing. Jack didn't slow until heads began turning along the street. He sat tall in the saddle chest, heaving eyes fixed on Dodge City. The feeling was strange, like pulling a thorn from your hand, and realizing it had been there for years. Clara pressed closer, still shaking. Jack did the one thing he should have done from the start. He pulled his coat tighter around her shoulders, making sure she was covered not like a hero, but like a man who finally remembered how to be decent. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jack nodded and then looked toward town, where a distant bell rang like a warning. "We can't stay out here," he said. "If we do, he turns us into a story folks tell wrong." Still in the saddle, Clara held tight as the ground jolted beneath them and her nerves frayed worse with every step. Mile by mile, Jack felt the weight of what he'd done. He'd fought a deputy. He'd fired his gun. He'd chosen a person over peace, and for a widower who'd lived careful and quiet, that choice rang louder than any shot. At the edge of Dodge City, Jack slowed. Two men on a porch stopped chewing and stared. One spat into the dust, squinting at Clara's torn dress. Jack lifted one hand, not friendly, not hostile, just asking for room. A wagon creaked past, slow as a funeral procession. Inside it, a woman pulled her child closer. Clara lowered her gaze, shame trying to crawl back over her like a blanket. Jack shifted in the saddle, angling his body to block her from the porch steps and watching eyes. He spoke low, meant only for her. "Keep your chin up. You didn't do a thing wrong." Clara let out a breath and nodded once. Near the kitchen rail, a man muttered, "That deputy again." Jack's eyes snapped toward him. "Where's the marshal?" Jack asked. He took in the street, the men half hidden in porch shadows, the way folks studied newcomers like trouble they hoped would pass on its own. Clara leaned closer. "Do you think they'll believe us?" she asked. Jack exhaled. "I don't know," he said. "But I know what happens when decent people keep walking away." He'd seen it before on empty stretches of trail in small towns that pretended nothing was wrong. A bully grows bold. A good man grows tired. And the first time a crooked badge wins, everyone learns how to look the other way. Clara's voice shook, but she forced the words out. "If they don't believe me, I'm finished." Jack turned just enough to meet her eyes. "Then we make them believe," he said. "And if they still won't, I'll stand with you anyway." That was the real fight, not the dust and fists back in the cottonwoods. The real fight was deciding who you were when silence would be easier. Jack had chosen quiet for 8 summers. He'd told himself it was strength. Standing up for Clara showed him the truth. Sometimes quiet is just fear dressed up polite. Jack looked at Clara again. She looked back at him, and there was something new in her eyes now. Not just gratitude, but trust. Maybe even the first spark of something else. The kind that comes when two people survive the same storm. They rode deeper into Dodge City to face whatever waited, not because they were fearless, but because they were done being pushed. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blaze the trail. Subscribe, share. Leave your thoughts in the comments and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process. But every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work. Cactus.